Part 23. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fengyuan Kandi. Chapter 221. When Mrs. Kui was looking at the umbrella, she saw Zhang Ziluo waking up and said, "Ziluo is awake, breakfast is ready, you wash up, and then we can have breakfast." As Mrs. Kui said, she put down her umbrella and helped Zhang Ziluo fetch water. "Mom, I can do it myself." "It's okay, Mom is also free, but the umbrella your dad gave me was really timely. It rained heavily today and I can use it just right." Zhang Ziluo said, "My father probably wouldn't have thought it would rain today." Kui Hejin looked at the weather outside and said, "It should rain all day and all night." Zhang Ziluo remembered that Kui Hejin knew astronomy and geography, and could also read the weather. What he said about the weather before was very accurate. So he said it rained all day and all night, so it must mean all day and all night. Mrs. Kui said, "If it rains so heavily, there will definitely be water in the river." Thinking of this, Mrs. Kui was a little worried and asked, "Will the river water spread up?" Kui Hejin said, "The river bank is high and the river water is flowing. Nothing will happen." In this way, Mrs. Kui was relieved. After Zhang Ziluo washed up, Kui Hejin opened the pot, took out the breakfast and put it on the dining table. Nowadays, the house is very big, the kitchen is also big, and the rooms are all connected by doors. Beside the kitchen is the hall, which is also equivalent to a restaurant, convenient for eating. It is no longer as crowded as the small fenced house before. While eating breakfast and listening to the sound of rain, Zhang Ziluo thought the sound was really nice. Moreover, the wind blows into the house through the gaps, bringing with it the fragrant fragrance of earth, giving it a very refreshing feeling. Although this era does not have those things in the technological era, it is environmentally friendly and hygienic. There is no garbage beside the river. The air is so fresh and comfortable to breathe. In the past, the Kui family had a rule of not talking when eating or sleeping, but when they came to the countryside, Mrs. Kui's habits gradually changed. She used to talk to Zhang Ziluo while eating. "Ziluo, the umbrella made by your father looks strong and big. It's better than the ones bought outside." Mrs. Kui went to the market and the town before and saw someone selling umbrellas. She had seen that the umbrellas were not big, had no decorations, and cost 300 coins each. "The relatives were really nice and gave me 3 umbrellas directly. You can tell by the workmanship that it's good. The key is that the pattern looks good." Zhang Ziluo was drinking porridge. She stopped moving her hands, looked up at Mrs. Kui and said, "Mom, do you think the pattern looks good?" "That's right, ordinary people can't draw those patterns. Did your dad hire someone to draw them?" "No, my mother painted it." Mrs. Kui was shocked. She didn't expect Zhang Ziluo's mother to be able to draw. Looking at Mrs. Kui's dazed look, Zhang Ziluo said, "Mom, is there anything wrong with that pattern?" Mrs. Kui shook her head, "No problem, I just feel familiar." "Have you seen my mother somewhere?" Mrs. Kui thought about it carefully and said, "That's a lotus flower. The painting method is unique. If it looks familiar, it should be this kind of painting method that was popular in the capital in the past. When embroidering handkerchiefs, I can embroider various patterns. Maybe I remembered it wrong." Zhang Ziluo's expression condensed, and she already had a guess in her mind. She felt that her parents were not like ordinary country people, and her father's statement that her grandfather was a scholar was not very convincing. "Are your parents from the capital? Who are you trying to avoid by not letting your younger brothers study and take exams?" Zhang Ziluo always feels that there is a mist lingering in it. "My parents didn't say anything." Even if she asked, they wouldn't say anything. If you ask questions or ask in a hurry, it will make them sad. If they are really avoiding what happened in the past, it is to protect the family even if they don't tell them. So Zhang Ziluo couldn't keep asking. "But it's okay if you don't know anything," just live a stable life like this, and be a harmonious family. After breakfast, Zhang Zhiluo made chili con carne at home. She couldn't stay idle anyway. It was only in the middle of the morning when the sound of a carriage suddenly came from outside the house. The carriage quickly stopped at the door, and there was a knock on the door. Mrs. Kui muttered, "It's raining heavily, who is here?" Mrs. Kui is going to open the door and have a look. Zhang Zhiluo held up her umbrella and said, "Mom, let me go and take a look." Kui Hejin was chopping meat. He put down the knife, came over and held her hand and said, "I'll go take a look." It rains so heavily that the school naturally rests. The old teachers in the school have all told us that if it rains heavily or snows, there will be no classes in the school. So Kui Hejin did not go to school that day, but helped make chili meat sauce at home. Kui Hejin walked out of the yard holding an umbrella. After a while Kui Hejin and Lu Tingan came in. Before Zhang Zhiluo could say anything, Lu Tingan said anxiously, "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry for coming to see you in such a heavy rain." Zhang Zhiluo said, "Are you busy?" Lu Tingan was panicking, "That's it, the young lady is sick." Zhang Zhiluo's face changed, "How could she get sick? Last time I prescribed acupuncture for her, and she won't get sick within a year. Yes, the voodoo bug was suppressed by her, and the little lady will not get sick within a year. It also gave Miss Jiao time to prepare, and she could find the fragrant violet within a year to get rid of the poison." Lu Tingan also felt uncomfortable. "Yes, the young lady accidentally ate almonds. The young lady is allergic to almonds, which caused the disease. Miss Jiao can't leave, so she can only ask me to come over. Sister-in-law, look, can I trouble you to go?" Lu Tingan was also a little embarrassed. It was also because Miss Jiao knew that he was familiar with Brother Kui and Zhang Zhiluo, so she asked him to do it. Seeing how uncomfortable the young lady looked, he was naturally willing to help her go. But, he wasn't sure whether he could invite his sister-in-law. Zhang Zhiluo looked shocked, her face suddenly changed, her eyes widened, she grabbed Lu Tingan's sleeve and said, "What did you say? You said she is allergic to almonds." Zhang Zhiluo couldn't help but think of some scenes in her dream. The elder man of the Wei family was allergic to almonds and couldn't eat almonds. Moreover, the last time she saw the young lady, she later dreamed about the Wei family and felt that the young lady's eyes were very similar to those of the Wei family's elder brother. But she didn't think much about it. At this time Lu Tingan said this, Zhang Zhiluo had to think more and had a guess in her heart. "Yes, I heard that the little miss has been allergic to almonds since she was born. I don't know who put some almonds in the porridge that the little miss drank this time, so the little miss is allergic and uncomfortable. You can cure the allergy, but the little miss is allergic to almonds. The young lady's illness is so severe that she can't control it." Zhang Zhiluo's face turned pale. She turned around and went into the house. She picked up the medicine box and came to the living room and said, "I'll go with you." Zhang Zhiluo wished she could leave immediately. She was more anxious than Lu Tingan at the moment. Lu Tingan was so stunned that he didn't even react. "Sister-in-law, you agreed. Stop talking nonsense and get going." Yes, hurry up." Lu Tingan hurriedly ran to the yard. The same is true for Zhang Zhiluo. Kui Hejin grabbed Zhang Zhiluo's hand, held up the umbrella, and placed it on Zhang Zhiluo's head. "Be careful if you get caught in the rain." "I'll go with you." The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 222. Chapter 222 is related. First update. The three people got on the carriage, and the driver quickly drove to the county government academy. The rain was still falling heavily outside the carriage. The atmosphere in the car was a bit solemn, and Zhang Zhiluo sat in the car without speaking. She is thinking about something. In the dream, Dalin of the Wei family was allergic to almonds. I still remember that when everyone in the Wei family gathered together to eat dried fruits, the elder of the Wei family could not eat almonds. Everyone made fun of him. The imperial doctors said that it was very rare that he was allergic to almonds. No, the imperial doctor has treated so many people, and this is the first time he has encountered someone who is allergic to almonds. Originally, I like to put all kinds of dried fruits when cooking porridge in the kitchen, but now I can't have almonds. We no longer buy almonds in our kitchen. Wajia Dalan was also helpless. I don't know why I am allergic to this. Not only that, my eldest brother is also allergic to eggplant and cannot eat eggplant. Yes, Dalan Wei is not only allergic to almonds, but also to eggplants. He cannot eat eggplant either. Thinking of this, Zhang Ziluo's heart was beating fast. She didn't know anyone from the Wei family, but she could dream about such clear scenes, so she knew those scenes were true. She also remembered the appearance of the Wei family's elder brother very clearly. At this moment, when I think about the young lady's appearance carefully, I feel that she looks very similar to the old man of the Wei family. Then Miss Jiao must be the son of the eldest son of the Wei family. But that's not right. The elder man of the Wei family died 9 years ago. If the little girl is his daughter, does that mean he is not dead? Zhang Ziluo's eyes turned red when she thought that there were still people in the Wei family alive. It's great that there are still people in the Wei family alive. For some reason, Zhang Ziluo couldn't stay calm and rational when it came to matters related to the Wei family. Zhang Ziluo's body became more and more tense, and her whole body fell into this emotion. Lu Tingan felt that the atmosphere in the carriage was strange, and for some reason it felt depressing and dull. Kui Hejin reached out and gently held Zhang Ziluo's hand, and said warmly, "Ziluo, did you not sleep well last night? Please close your eyes and rest for a while." Zhang Ziluo shook her head and said, "It's okay, I'll be there in a minute." She has no intention of resting now. Her mind was filled with thoughts of the Wei family and the little lady. If she is really the daughter of the eldest son of the Wei family, she must save her. For some reason, Zhang Ziluo had such a firm idea in her heart. She knew it wouldn't happen for no reason. Was it because she was related to the Wei family? Academy. Dr. Chiu is treating Jiao Mengmeng with acupuncture. But Jiao Mengmeng's condition is still a bit dangerous, her breathing is still a little rapid, her body is itchy and painful, but she endures not to move, she is very obedient. She just looked at her mother with tears in her eyes. Miss Jiao frowned slightly and kept staring at Dr. Chiu. When Zhang Ziluo arrived, Dr. Chiu looked at Zhang Ziluo, breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Miss Zhang is here." Without saying a word, Zhang Ziluo stepped forward to feel Jiao Mengmeng's pulse. Thanks to Dr. Chiu for helping her stabilize her condition. Dr. Chiu's medical skills are also among the best in the county. "Miss Ruo Jiang, if you don't come, there's nothing I can do next." Dr. Chiu pulled out the silver needle, and Zhang Ziluo used the silver needle. Zhang Ziluo introduced the wood power into Jiao Mengmeng's body through acupuncture. It also suppressed the restless bugs in her body, and her allergic symptoms were also reduced a lot. 15 minutes later, Jiao Mengmeng's breathing became much calmer, and the rash on her face and body also dissipated. It is much better visible to the naked eye. Everyone in the room breathed a sigh of relief. Miss Jiao's originally tense expression also relaxed. It's just that Miss Jiao has always been veiled, and others can't see the expression on her face. After Kui Hejin entered the room, his attention was all on Zhang Ziluo, and he didn't even look at the so-called Miss Jiao. Kui Hejin never paid too much attention to other women. It was Miss Jiao who glanced at him inadvertently, her expression slightly condensed. Another quarter of an hour later, Jiao Mengmeng fell asleep and the situation stabilized before Zhang Ziluo pulled out the silver needle. Dr. Chiu sighed, "It must be Miss Zhang. This medical skill is amazing." Zhang Ziluo said calmly, "Dr. Chiu has given you too much praise." Zhang Ziluo said, "Dr. Chiu, you can bring a pen and paper. Yes, there is. The pen and paper he brought were also for the convenience of writing prescriptions. Dr. Chu, please write a prescription for me. She is a little exhausted now and can only find someone to write the prescription for her. Dr. Chu was very excited. Okay, Miss Zhang said, I will write it. Generally, doctors do not let others see when they prescribe medicine, nor do they want others to know about it. Ms. Zhang was very generous and let him know all the prescriptions. Dr. Chu also admired Zhang's logo even more. After writing the prescription, Zhang's logo handed it to Miss Jiao and said, follow this prescription and you'll be fine after taking it for half a month. Miss Jiao nodded, and then made a sign of thanks with her hand. He gave Dr. Chu 50 taels of silver and Zhang's logo 50 taels of silver. Zhang's logo seemed to have thought of something and said to Miss Jiao, could you please take a moment to speak? Ms. Jiao thought it was related to Jiao Mingmeng's health, so she asked people to leave first. Kui Hejin also winked at Lu Tingan and asked him to come out. Lu Tingan was stunned, not knowing what they were going to say. When no one was around, Zhang's logo said, I would like to ask, is the young lady allergic to other foods? After saying these words, a sharp edge flashed across Miss Jiao's eyes. There was a trace of murderous aura coming out. In just a moment, she quickly took control. Although it was very fast, Zhang's logo also captured the subtle changes. So she could see that Miss Jiao was wary of others. It was just something she was allergic to. Why she reacted like this showed that she was guarding against others. Why should we be on guard against others? It can only be said that the secrets of Jiao Mengmeng cannot be discovered. Don't worry, Miss Jiao. It concerns the patient's privacy and I won't tell it. It's just for the health of the little lady, so I have to ask more questions to facilitate treatment. Don't worry, Miss Jiao, I won't hurt you. Zhang's logo's eyes were extremely sincere. Zhang's logo was approaching Miss Jiao at this moment and found that Miss Jiao was slim and taller than her. She wants to look up at her expression. Zhang's logo's eyes made Miss Jiao look dazed for a moment. It reminded her of an old friend. It's a pity that the man is dead. A sad look flashed across Miss Jiao's eyes, and she lowered her head to cover the emotion in her eyes. After a while, Miss Jiao picked up the pen next to her and wrote one word, yes. Zhang's logo's heart beat faster. Sure enough, she was allergic to other things. Miss Jiao, can you tell me what kind of food it is? If my guess is correct, it should be vegetables. I just noticed something strange when I was treating the little lady. Use this as a cover to hide something. Knowing more about it will be helpful in treating the little lady's body. Because after finding the medicinal materials, we also need to remove the poison. Miss Jiao frowned and looked at Zhang's logo and wrote, you must promise not to tell anyone. Zhang's logo said seriously and solemnly, don't worry, I will never tell anyone. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 223. Chapter 223 Preserved Egg, Second Update. Miss Jiao looked at her eyes to make sure she was not lying, and then she wrote two words, eggplant. Although Zhang's logo had some guesses in her mind, her heart still beat a few times when she actually heard the word eggplant. Her eyes were slightly hot, she nodded and said, okay, I understand. However, Zhang's logo quickly suppressed her emotions. She said, don't worry, she will be fine. Zhang's logo also explained some matters that need attention. Opening the door, Zhang's logo walked out. Kui Hejin was waiting under the corridor at the door. When she came out and saw something wrong with her face, a cold light flashed across his picturesque eyes, and then he looked at Miss Jiao behind him. Although Miss Jiao was covered with a veil, her cold red phoenix eyes still made Kui Hejin's expression change dramatically. Miss Jiao also saw Kui Hejin again at this time. The eldest son of the Kui family and the number one son in the capital. Zhang Ziluo was about to pull Kui Hejin to leave, but she felt that Kui Hejin hadn't moved. She looked up at Kui Hejin's expression. But she found Kui Hejin looking behind her. Is he looking at Miss Jiao? Isn't it? She also knew that although Miss Jiao was veiled, her eyes were extremely beautiful and easily attracted attention. What's wrong with you? Kui Hejin shook his head and said, nothing. Let's go. With that said, Kui Hejin held an umbrella for Zhang Ziluo and took her out. Miss Jiao gestured to the steward at the door, and the steward immediately arranged a carriage to send Zhang Ziluo and Kui Hejin back. Lu Tingan seemed to have something in mind and said, sister-in-law, wait a minute. Zhang Ziluo paused, turned to look at Lu Tingan and said, what's the matter? Well, the bread made by my sister-in-law before was so delicious, my classmates who bought it said it was delicious and everyone wanted to buy it again. I wonder if it will be convenient for my sister-in-law to come here to set up a stall and sell bread when the weather is nice. He would go to Kui's house when he was sleeping, so he naturally knew that Zhang Ziluo would go to the town to set up a stall and do business. Zhang Ziluo said, I will come over when I have time. Lu Tingan was very happy when he heard this. Although you can't eat bread every day, you can eat it occasionally to satisfy your craving. Going back and sitting on the carriage, Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Hejin, who seemed to be worried, and said, do you also think Miss Jiao is beautiful? Kui Hejin sighed softly and said, don't think about it, I'm just thinking about one thing. Zhang Ziluo asked, what's the matter? Kui Hejin reached out and touched Zhang Ziluo's hair and said, I will tell you when I think about it clearly. Kui Hejin didn't say anything for the time being. He also realized that it would be dangerous if he knew too much about this matter, so he didn't want to tell Zhang Ziluo for the time being. So you don't look at Miss Jiao because she is beautiful? Kui Hejin shook his head helplessly and said, where are you thinking? Of course not. After returning home, it was exactly noon. Ms. Kui made wontons by herself. Ms. Kui said, on rainy days, eating some steaming rice will make you feel warm. There are many kinds of fillings for wontons, including radish and egg fillings, wild vegetable and meat fillings, and egg yolk fillings. On a rainy day, the wind in the air is a bit cold, and the wind is a bit strong, even more chilly, making people feel a bit cold. In this weather, she really wanted to eat some hot rice with soup. It's good to eat wontons. My mother is still thoughtful. Ms. Kui said, I don't know how it tastes, but I am better at mixing stuffing now than before. I now know that egg yolks can be used to make not only snacks but also wontons. She had no idea that salted duck eggs could be used to make so many delicacies before. Ms. Kui didn't know whether egg yolk-filled wontons were delicious or not, but she remembered that Zhang Ziluo had mentioned them before, so she remembered them. Zhang Ziluo said, it smells good to me. The wontons made by my mother must be delicious. I happen to be hungry. Ms. Kui said, then let's cook wontons. Ms. Kui wrapped it first. She planned to cook it when Ziluo and Hejin came back. If it is cooked in advance, it will become stiff and unpalatable. Kui Hejin went to the utility room in the yard and took some dry firewood to light the fire. Ms. Kui still couldn't help but sigh with emotion, it's better to live in a big house. We have many big rooms in our yard. Some sundries and firewood can be piled in the utility room. If it rains, we don't have to worry about getting wet. Now that I think about the time when I lived in a small courtyard with a fence, Ms. Kui felt that it was hard. She felt comfortable when she thought about the big house she lived in now. Zhang Ziluo also thought of the time when she was in the small courtyard. At that time, when she saw it was raining, she had to get up quickly to build things in the yard, or take some things into the house. So when it rains, the house will be full of things. After the pot is boiled, Mrs. Kui puts down the wontons. Zhang Ziluo washed her hands, beat an egg and stirred it. She planned to put some frangipani in the wonton soup and add some green vegetables. It would be great if there were dried shrimps. But there are no shrimps and green vegetables are put in for seasoning. After it was cooked, each person scooped out a big bowl. When she sat down to eat the wontons, Mrs. Kui couldn't wait to taste the egg yolk filling. "Mom, the wontons you made are thin and filling. They look delicious at first glance. You can see the color inside from the outside. This should be the egg yolk filling." Mrs. Kui nodded and said, "Yes, you all have a taste." Mrs. Kui also scooped one up with a spoon and put it in her mouth to eat. "It's delicious, especially the one with egg yolk filling." Zhang Ziluo also likes to eat egg yolk filling. "Mom, the wontons stuffed with preserved egg are actually delicious." Mrs. Kui was stunned for a moment. Preserved egg. Zhang Ziluo saw Mrs. Kui's puzzled look and wondered if there were no preserved eggs here. "It's also made from pickled duck eggs, black." Mrs. Kui suddenly realized, "Oh, you are talking about the egg. When I was in the capital, there were people selling it, but when I came to Donghe village, I never saw the egg." Zhang Ziluo thought, is it possible that only a few people know how to pickle and turn eggs? However, most people can't eat it and it tastes weird. It's not as delicious as egg yolk wontons and egg yolk snacks. Mrs. Kui thought that if there were duck eggs, she would definitely pickle the salted duck eggs instead of pickling them into eggs. Zhang Ziluo knows that preserved eggs are a good thing. Preserved eggs can be used in cooking and can be used to make preserved egg and lean meat porridge. I don't know if there is any restaurant that sells altered eggs. Kui Hejin said, "No." Zhang Ziluo was stunned. Have you been to a restaurant?" Mrs. Kui took the initiative to help and explained, "Guanxi Feng from Linjiang Tower in our town is very nice. He Jin also borrowed an umbrella when it rained before." Kui Hejin added, "Guanxi Feng and I met when we went to the bookstore. I helped write the dishes and did the accounting. Now his son is also studying at Shishi Academy." Zhang Ziluo's eyes lit up. "Is there any shortage of dishes in Linjiang Tower?" Zhang Ziluo was thinking about pickling preserved eggs and selling preserved egg dishes in restaurants. After making preserved eggs in this way, can we directly supply them to restaurants? End of this chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Feng Yuan Candy. Chapter 224. But pickled preserved eggs need to be marinated for a month before you can eat them. Kui Hejin said, "There should be a lack of good dishes." "It's good if it lacks good dishes." Zhang Ziluo asked, "Can you tell me about the current situation of Linjiang Tower?" Kui Hejin whispered, "Linjiang Tower's business was originally very good, but last year another restaurant opened in the town and introduced several dishes that Linjiang Tower did not have, attracting many customers, and Linjiang Tower's business suffered accordingly. A big impact. Shopkeeper Feng is under great pressure. If Linjiang Tower continues like this, the owner of Linjiang Tower will withdraw its staff and sell the restaurant. But Linjiang restaurant is the hard work of shopkeeper Feng. Once the restaurant is resold, shopkeeper Feng will have no place to go. Even if he goes back to his employer, he will no longer be taken seriously." Madame Kui nodded and said, "That's true. If a good store is handed over to a manager whom he trusts, but he fails to manage the store well and instead forces the store to be transferred, in the owner's mind, the manager is incompetent and the owner I generally won't use him again." The Kui family also has many stores, and she also arranges stewards to manage them. If there is a problem, she will naturally remove the steward. Zhang Ziluo understood that manager Feng was under great pressure. If there were really good dishes, manager Feng would be able to buy them and do business. In fact, Zhang Ziluo's main purpose is not to sell dishes, but to do preserved egg business. She thought for a moment and said, "Mom, are preserved eggs in Beijing expensive?" Mrs. Kui nodded and said, expensive, a preserved egg costs 50 cents. Those high-ranking officials can just eat it fresh. Zhang Ziluo was shocked when she heard the price. No, mother, are the preserved eggs in Beijing so expensive? A duck egg costs less than a penny. Mrs. Kui said, no one thinks it is expensive. I heard that the egg is made of wine. The price of wine is so expensive, so everyone can accept it? Zhang Ziluo was thoughtful when she heard it, but no, there are different pickling methods for preserved eggs. If it is soaked and pickled with wine, tea, and other ingredients, the cost will indeed be higher. But if it is pickled with lime, plant ash, and other things, the cost will be very low. Even if you can't find limestone to make lime, you can still get lime by calcining shells. There are some stalls at the pier selling small items with shells in them, and grocery stores also sell shells at very cheap prices. In this case, the price of preserved egg dishes is also cheap. Even if shopkeeper Feng sells them at a high price, no one will suspect anything. She pickles some first, and even if the restaurant doesn't accept it, she can still sell it. Mrs. Kui looked at Zhang Ziluo's expression and said, Ziluo, do you want to make preserved eggs? Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, well, Mom, preserved eggs are actually a good thing. They can be used to make many delicacies. They can be used to make dishes and porridge. Mrs. Kui has tasted the taste of preserved eggs, but she really doesn't know what cooking tastes like. It can also be used to make porridge. This was the first time she had heard of it. But she believed in Ziluo, and there was nothing that Ziluo made that was not delicious. Then should we buy duck eggs first? If I had known that when I was hatching chickens, I would also buy duck eggs to hatch ducklings when they grow up, they can lay duck eggs. Zhang Ziluo said, Mom, don't bother, we can just buy duck eggs. The price is also cheap. You can buy 2 duck eggs for 1 penny. Yes, this is the price of duck eggs on the market. In Zhang Ziluo's opinion, this price is really cheap. If you need duck eggs, just buy duck eggs directly. Mrs. Kui knew that Zhang Ziluo was really planning to make preserved eggs. She naturally supported it and said, then just go to the market in the town to buy duck eggs. I remember when we went there to set up a stall selling snacks, there were many elderly people sitting there with baskets selling duck eggs, but not many people bought them. When we came back at noon, they were often still sitting there, holding a duck egg. None of them were sold. Mrs. Kui also sighed a little, but at that time they could only take care of themselves, not others. If we buy duck eggs, they can sell the duck eggs and make some money to support their family. In the past, Mrs. Kui grew up in a wealthy family and did not know the sufferings of the people at all. After coming here and seeing the life of the people here, she realized that there were many people who did not have enough to eat or clothing to keep warm. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, well, tomorrow I will go to the market to sell chili sauce and buy some duck eggs. Buy as much as you can. We happen to have an ox cart at home, so it's convenient to use an ox cart to pull us back. Mrs. Kui suddenly became energetic and said, Mom, I'll stay with you. This time Zhang Ziluo did not refuse. Okay, let's go to the town after breakfast tomorrow. Shopping is different from selling things. Shopping is just like going shopping, it is not hard work, so Zhang Ziluo thought it would be good to take Mrs. Kui with her, just for fun. After lunch, Mrs. Kui asked Zhang Ziluo to rest for a while. Zhang Ziluo gave Jiao Mengmeng acupuncture in the morning and used the wood power. She was indeed a little tired and needed to take a nap to recover. Besides, it's raining outside, and the sound of the rain is very hypnotic. In modern high-rise buildings, even if it rains, the feeling of hearing the rain inside is not that real. Here, the sound of rain seems to be right next to my ears, and the wind is blowing so hard that it makes a sound when it hits the window lattice. In such a voice, Zhang Ziluo slowly relaxed and fell asleep. Kui Hejin didn't sleep. He just sat on the table and drank water, thinking about something while drinking water. Mrs. Kui still knows a little about her son. Looking at him like this, she knows that she has something on her mind. Hejin, you look worried. Did something happen this morning? Just to save someone, it should be nothing. Kui Hejin shook his head and said, it's nothing. He didn't say anything because he didn't want his mother to worry about it. Mrs. Kui said anxiously, look at you like this. The more you don't say anything, the more anxious I will be. You are my son. You are used to hiding your thoughts, and my mother doesn't say anything. But now we are no better than before. If you have anything to do, tell your mother. At least she will have an idea. Just like when something happened to the Kui family, Qian's mother really didn't know anything about it. Speaking of this, Mrs. Kui felt a little depressed. At that time, Hejin didn't tell her about her father's court affairs, for fear that she would worry. Thinking about it now, if she knew more, she could have made more preparations for the Kui family, which would have been better than being caught off guard after the imperial guard sealed the house. Kui Hejin sighed softly and said slowly, Mom, everyone says His Highness the grandson is dead, but I think he should still be alive. Mrs. Kui was a little in disbelief. She only felt the thunder ringing in her ears. Her eyes widened, she grabbed Kui Hejin's wrist excitedly and said, are you telling the truth? Mrs. Kui knows best what it means that His Highness Taejun is still alive. At this moment, Mrs. Kui's eyes were red. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 225. Great-grandson, he has been a virtuous person since childhood. His intelligence is even better than that of the prince. The prince and the grandson both died, and many people mourned and mourned. Many people believe that when the prince ascends the throne and the grandson becomes the prince and then the emperor, the entire Yun kingdom will usher in a prosperous age. It is a pity that the late emperor at that time was very suspicious in his later years and often made things difficult for His Royal Highness. At that time, the late emperor began to kill innocent ministers indiscriminately, and the prince often warned him, which further angered the emperor. So much so that after the witchcraft case came out, the prince was deposed, imprisoned, and sentenced to death. The place where the prince was imprisoned was burned down, and the grandson also died in the fire. In the middle of the night after the death of the prince, thunder roared, and the Chaofeng Hall built by the emperor at that time was struck by lightning and collapsed. The emperor was awakened in the middle of the night, and Qin Tianjian didn't know what he said to the emperor when he entered the palace for divination. The emperor fell seriously ill and became increasingly weak. After he woke up, he quickly had people collect the body and bury the prince and grandson. Later, the emperor lingered on his sick bed, and the court and the princes fought fiercely. In the end, the emperor died, and the most inconspicuous prince at that time succeeded to the throne. Who would have thought that this humble prince would be so ruthless after becoming emperor, just to consolidate his power, killing innocent ministers indiscriminately, without caring about the lives of the people. Even more ruthless than the late emperor in his later years. When he was the prince, no one saw him like this. Kui Hejin said, I'm not sure, but I have some guesses. And no one knows what my grandson will look like after so many years. Upon hearing this, Mrs. Kui asked excitedly, have you met His Highness Taejun? Kui Hejin stopped talking. Mom, it's better not to talk about uncertain things and be more rigorous, otherwise it will only bring danger to ordinary people. You are right, don't say it yet, don't say it yet. But even so, Mrs. Kui is happy. It is always good to have hope. Zhang Ziluo woke up in the middle of the afternoon and regained her energy. It was raining outside and they couldn't go anywhere, so they made chili con carne at home. The bread kiln is in the yard, and it's raining, so it's impossible to bake bread. So they could only make more chili con carne and fry some chestnuts. Just that night, Zhang Ziluo dreamed again. This time, it's not in the Wei mansion. It was at a palace banquet that envoys from other countries brought crabs for people to eat. No one has ever seen a crab, especially when they saw the appearance of a crab. Many girls and ladies turned pale, but they could not lose their etiquette. Even the emperor looked very unhappy. Because the envoy just wanted to make Yun Guo embarrassed, this was a contest. If the people of Yun State don't know what this is or how to eat, the envoy will say that Yun State doesn't even know crabs and can't even eat crabs. This is not only a loss of face, but also a display of the strength of diplomatic relations. Her aunt asked her quietly if she knew what it was. The Wei family all know that their sister likes to eat, knows how to eat, and is very smart. I am also anxious and want to ask. In fact, what happened this time was because her eldest uncle's natal brother was responsible for receiving the envoys. If something goes wrong with the crabs, the emperor will definitely blame these people. So her auntie was anxious. Miss Wei Lu asked people to find a few things, but they were actually tools to eat crabs. In fact, it is 8 pieces of crab. The steward of the inner court hurriedly looked for something. Miss Wei Lu sat down at the banquet table again, took something and started eating. She ate very slowly, deliberately letting everyone see how she ate. Miss Wei Lu frowned and said, "Oh, mother, why do we have such a thing on our dining table? Everyone doesn't like the food. It's so troublesome to eat." Miss Wei Lu was born in the 3rd room of the Wei family. Mrs. Wei San knew that her daughter was smart and knew her daughter's intentions, so she deliberately said, "This is something sent by the envoy." Miss Wei Lu was deliberately surprised and said, "Ah, don't they have anything else to eat in their country? They can only eat this kind of thing. You won't be full just by eating this." The little girl's 5-year-old talkative appearance would not make anyone suspicious, and she even slapped the envoy in the face. So this time, Yun State took the initiative in the banquet and diplomatic relations. Girl Wei Lu made great contributions, and the emperor happily rewarded her with many things. She was going home, but her 3rd brother called her over. "3rd brother, where are we going?" "3rd brother will take you to meet someone." "Who is it?" "Your Highness the grandson." Upon hearing His Highness the grandson, the little girl frowned and said, "3rd brother, but I don't want to see you. I want to go home." Miss Wei Lu doesn't want to have anything to do with anyone in the palace. Although the 3rd brother has now become the companion of His Highness Taijun. His Royal Highness Taijun's invitation is something we cannot refuse. Girl Wei Lu sighed like a brat and said, "But 3rd brother, His Highness the grandson is so virtuous and kind, so he will definitely not be blamed for such a trivial matter." Wei Sanlang doted on his sister very much. Seeing that her sister really didn't want to see His Highness the grandson, he could only say, "Well, if you don't want to see her, then you can see her. 3rd brother will take you home." I knew that 3rd brother was the best. Miss Wei Lu wished she could get out of the palace quickly. At this moment, a young man wearing picturesque white clothes came over and stood in front of them. "You must be the sister of the Wei family." The young boy looks about 10 years old. He looks clear, soft, calm, and elegant, and has a stable temperament. Especially those phoenix eyes are really beautiful. And when he looked down at her, there was a smile in his eyes. Wei Sanlang hurriedly said, "Yes, Your Highness." His Highness Taijun said warmly, "There is no need to be polite in private. No wonder you often mention your sister with such a sister. I want to pamper and protect her." Wei Sanlang didn't understand what Taijun meant. He knew that his sister didn't like the palace, but the Wei family was in this position. The emperor held a banquet for all the ministers and their families, so everyone had to attend. Girl Wei Lu lowered her head and tried to reduce her presence and said nothing. She is very smart and she knows what to avoid. His Highness Taijun said, "Sister Wei has made great achievements today, and I also want to personally thank Sister Wei." As he said that, His Highness Taizun cupped his hands. Your Highness, this is not possible. Miss Wei Lu raised her head and looked at His Highness Taizun in front of her. She was gentle, polite, reserved, and meaningful. Although she is young, she also knows that if something goes wrong at this banquet, the prince will be punished, because it is also the prince's task to receive the envoys. The little girl is very smart, Brother Taizun, as a citizen of Yun State, safeguarding the interests of Yun State is what I should do. I happen to like eating, so I have studied a lot of ways to eat food, and I also know how to eat crabs. Brother Taizun, if you want to thank me, give me some more crabs. She plans to go back and make spicy crab for her family to eat. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fengyuan Candy. Chapter 226. His Royal Highness Taizun listened to the little girl's words and smiled softly. Okay, if you want anything else, you can tell me. The little girl shook her head and said, no need, I just like to eat. His Highness Taizun said, if you need anything in the future, you can ask your third brother to tell me. His Royal Highness Taizun always uses the name I when speaking, giving people a feeling of being approachable. Miss Wei Lu thinks he is very good, and the third brother always praises him when he goes home. But Miss Wei Lu still thinks that he is the grandson, which means imperial power, and she doesn't want to have too much contact with him. If he was just the eldest brother of an ordinary family, she would also be willing to get close to him. No need, I'm still young and don't need anything, I just want to be fed and clothed. Taizun smiled softly and said, Sister Wei is very cute. When she dreamed of this, Zhang Ziluo's heart was already filled with turmoil. It was the unique pair of red and phoenix eyes that reminded her of Miss Jiao. She thought she must be crazy. Must be thinking too much, thinking about it day by day and dreaming about it at night. So this dream, after Zhang Ziluo woke up, she shook her head and didn't think about it anymore. The rain had stopped by the next morning. After breakfast, Mrs. Kui and Zhang Ziluo loaded the chili meat sauce on the ox cart and pulled the ox cart to the town. Kui Hejin also followed. The roadside was very muddy and wet after it rained. Kui Hejin took a bullock cart to the town to avoid walking on the muddy land. If you don't step in with your shoes, it will be full of mud when you come out. In this era, there are no concrete roads, only dirt roads. Sitting on the bullock cart, Zhang Ziluo breathed in the air, feeling extremely fresh and smelling of earthy, moist grass. It smells very comfortable. It's great, the air here is fresh and there is no pollution. This kind of breath makes people relax involuntarily. While walking towards the town, they also passed by the river. Looking from a distance, they could see the rushing water in the river flowing downward. Mrs. Kui said, the river is full of water, it's quite spectacular. The river water spread up and rolled down. Looking at it makes people feel open-minded. Mrs. Kui said, in a few days, more people will go to the river to wash clothes. Take advantage of this time to unpack and wash all your winter bedding and cotton-padded clothes. Once they are ready, you can continue to wear them in the winter. Speaking, Mrs. Kui smiled and sighed, I have never washed clothes before in the Yang family or in the capital, so I came to Donghe village to learn to wash clothes. Just move a big stone by the river, one can sit on it, and the other can use it to wash clothes. Don't mention it, although I am doing laundry, I don't feel tired, it's just like leisure time, especially talking with people in the village is quite interesting, and the time passes quickly. Zhang Ziluo knew that in this era, there was no TV or internet, and the villagers were idle and bored on weekdays. Although washing clothes in the river was busy, everyone talked while washing, which was also a kind of relaxation for everyone. This is pastoral life. The wind after the rain has a slight refreshing coolness, which makes people feel comfortable when blowing on them. Zhang Ziluo looked at the wheat fields in the distance and found that the wheat grew very high. When the wind blew, the waves of wheat rolled. The wheat harvest will be ready in just over a month. After arriving in the town, Kui Hejin was first sent to the school by an ox cart. Following that, Zhang Ziluo and Mrs. Kui went to set up a stall selling chili meat sauce and sugar-fried chestnuts. The sugar-roasted chestnuts were roasted last night and sold directly at a stall today. Zhang Ziluo drove the cattle drive. "Mom, let's go to the market to set up a stall. There are duck eggs sold there. Let's just take a look and buy duck eggs while setting up the stall." Mrs. Kui nodded. "Okay, let's go to the market first." They went to the largest market in the town, where they first set up stalls. Arriving at the market, Mrs. Kui said, "Here, I suddenly remembered the time when we first set up a stall to sell leek boxes. At that time, the food was delicious, many people bought it, and business was easy every day. I looked forward to setting up a stall to make money the next day." Mrs. Kui still remembers the happy mood she felt when she went home and counted the money. "At that time, I could just eat enough, thanks to Ziluo being there. Now they live in a big house, have enough to eat, and wear new clothes." Mrs. Kui specially put on the new clothes she had made before coming to town today. This is the cloth Ziluo bought when she went to the market in Yanglia village. These are the clothes Ziluo took the time to make for her. So Mrs. Kui reached out and touched the clothes on her body, looking like she cherished them. This cotton is so comfortable to wear. When working at home on weekdays, she was reluctant to wear cotton clothes and always wore burlap. When working in burlap clothes, you are not afraid of them getting dirty or torn. Of course Ziluo also bought a lot of good fabrics, and Mrs. Kui liked them very much. She also learned to make clothes when she had time, but she was not as good as Ziluo. Ziluo herself didn't even bother to wear nice clothes. Zhang Ziluo doesn't have a big idea about whether clothes look good or not. She thinks it's the same when wearing coarse linen clothes. She is thinking about how to do business and how to make more money. She didn't know why she often dreamed about things related to the Wei family. If she was really related to the Wei family, she wouldn't even dare to think about it. So she felt that she needed to earn more money to prepare for emergencies. It was not too early when they came, and most of the stalls in the market were occupied. Zhang Ziluo found a corner, tied the ox cart to a nearby tree, then put down the tables and chairs, placed bottles of chili meat sauce and wrapped bags of sugar-roasted chestnuts. Yes, when Zhang Ziluo was at home, she packed the candied roasted chestnuts into pounds per pound. This way you don't have to come with a scale. Anyway, there are only a dozen packages in total. Because roasted chestnuts are delicious and rare, Zhang Ziluo sells them for 30 cents per kilogram. This was the price when chestnuts roasted with sugar were first sold. I heard that they were tribute fruits, and some wealthy families rushed to buy them back for their children. Chestnuts are soft, glutinous, and sweet, and are loved by both children and old people. So Zhang Ziluo thinks the price is just right. Selling chili con carne sauce, fried chestnuts with sugar. Selling chili con carne sauce, sugar-fried chestnuts. Zhang Ziluo and Mrs. Kui shouted together. Their voices were very loud, and soon some people visiting the market noticed them in the corner. When she first set up the stall, Mrs. Kui was very embarrassed to speak out. Even if he shouts, his voice is not very loud. But now Mrs. Kui has learned to shout, and her voice is loud and resonant. Chili con carne, I know, it's delicious. My sister-in-law gave me a bottle last time and I finished it. I don't know where to buy it. A little woman pulled the woman next to her and hurried over. Sister, madam, how much does a bottle of your chili con carne cost? 30 cents per caddy. This is a bit expensive. Zhang Ziluo smiled and said, this beautiful sister, the chili meat sauce we sell is always at this price. An older lady from the side squeezed in and said, oh, it's Mrs. Zhang, it's you. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 227. Zhang Ziluo also remembered that this ant used to like to buy sugar-fried chestnuts. She smiled and said, "Auntie, you come to the market to buy things." "No, I'm here to buy some food and go back to cook for lunch." "You also have sugar-roasted chestnuts here. I bought them last time and my family likes them. They say they are delicious. The things you make are not sold in this market." Zhang Ziluo smiled and said, "Auntie, you are really honored. What about that? Give me a pack of roasted chestnuts and a bottle of chili con carne. My sister-in-law will be back in a few days, so I'll buy a bottle for her to try." With that said, the ant readily took out 60 coins, and Zhang Ziluo gave her a bag of sugar-roasted chestnuts and a bottle of chili meat sauce. They are old customers and they all know each other, so there is no need to talk nonsense when buying things. A woman also came over and said, "Oh, Miss Zhang, I haven't seen you for a long time." "Auntie, you bought my leek box and pot helmet before, I remember." The woman said with a smile, "You have a really good memory, but why don't you make a box of leeks? It's so delicious for us to eat." Zhang Ziluo said, "I won't make a leek box, but a leek box is also a vegetable. If Auntie wants to eat it, she can grow some herself." The woman's eyes lit up and she said, "I think so. We have a special piece of land in our house for growing vegetables. My mother-in-law used to live in the countryside and didn't like to play with flowers and plants in the yard, so she just liked to grow some vegetables. But I asked around in many places, but I didn't know about leeks." Zhang Ziluo said, "Auntie, I have leek seeds here. If you want to buy them, you can buy a pack and plant them back. You only need to buy them once. If you want to plant leek seeds the next year, just save the seeds." The woman looked at Zhang Ziluo gratefully and said, "Miss Zhang, you are so kind. It makes people feel rare just looking at it. Then I'll buy a pack of seeds." Zhang Ziluo took out a packet of chive seeds and handed it to the woman. He also taught her what to pay attention to when planting, and how to cut leeks one after another. The woman was moved and grateful. She knew how delicious the leek box was and how it was a profitable business. If others had been around, they would have hidden such a good thing so that no one would know about it. Who would have thought that this girl Zhang would sell seeds to them? The woman asked, "How much does this packet of seeds cost?" Luckily, she had some extra money in her pocket. The woman thought that such a good thing must cost several hundred pennies. Just like flowers, the seeds of rare and expensive flowers cost several taels of silver. Zhang Ziluo said, "A package of 5 cents is like this." "What?" The woman suspected that she had heard wrongly. How could leek seeds be so cheap? She must have heard wrong. Zhang Ziluo patiently repeated, "Auntie, just give me 5 cents, 5 cents per bag." The woman felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. "I just think it's as good as Miss Zhang thinks. How can seeds be so cheap for such a good thing?" Zhang Ziluo said, "I am doing other businesses now, so I am not doing the leek box business. I think leek seeds are cheaper and even poor people can afford them. As long as there is land, they can be planted in the yard. In this way everyone can eat one more vegetable on weekdays. And leeks, you can also grow some leeks in the house to eat in winter." As she spoke, Zhang Ziluo also explained the method. The woman sighed with emotion, "Miss Zhang, you are great. People like you are someone who does great things. You have a broad mind, and ordinary people can't compare with it. I admire you." Yes, the woman listened to her words and felt only admiration in her heart. Most people don't have this kind of magnanimity. Zhang Ziluo smiled and said nothing. If she could only do the leek box business now, she would not sell leek seeds. At this time, in the tea house next to the market, a woman wearing a bamboo hat was sitting by the window on the second floor. While she was drinking tea, She happened to hear the sound from downstairs. She also saw the scene just now. After a while, a man in black quietly entered the room. He saluted respectfully, "Master." The woman said calmly, "Have you checked it clearly?" The man in black said, "I found out that the lady is a girl from the Zhang family in Xinshan village. She married into the Kui family in early February and became Mr. Kui's wife. Master Kui was indeed the crown prince of Duke Kui. After he and Mrs. Kui were exiled and half of the world was pardoned, they left their sinful bodies and lived in Donghe village." The woman pointed her finger at the table. "Zhang's Hiluo is not like a country girl. Are her parents any different?" The man in black said, "No, it's just that they came to Xinshan village 9 years ago." Miss Jiao paused while drinking tea. 9 years ago, this time was not an ordinary time. 9 years ago, a lot of things happened. 9 years ago, the Wei family collaborated with the enemy and treason and was destroyed, the prince's witchcraft case was imprisoned, and loyal ministers were killed. A lot of any people who were hiding at that time were all related to these things. Must be someone related to the prince and implicated in the prince's case. The woman thought for a while and said, "There's no need to check." "Yes. Is there any news from southern Xinjiang?" "News has just come that Lin Lei and the others were assassinated when they entered southern Xinjiang and were seriously injured." The woman's voice was cold and stern, and she said, "Take Shadow and go there in person. Find the fragrant violet. Nothing will happen to Meng Meng." The man in black said, "Master, now King Duan has launched a war, and it will spread here if you are not careful. Shadow needs to protect the master, so one of my subordinates can go." The woman said seriously, "He is the only one who has left blood for the Wei family, and I must help him protect it. So there's no need to say anything else. Take Shadow and go to southern Xinjiang yourself. As for where the war will spread, let's see first." The man in black said, "Master, why don't you?" Before the man in black could finish speaking, the woman interrupted him and said, "Let's talk about it when the time is right." "Yes." After the man in black retreated, the woman slowly stood up. At this time, the wind outside blew up the bamboo hat veil on her face, revealing half of her face. If Zhang Ziluo were here at this time, she would definitely be shocked, because this is Miss Jiao. Zhang Ziluo is focusing on selling chili con carne sauce and sugar-fried chestnuts. Many of them are old customers who recognize Zhang Ziluo, so they also know that the food she makes is delicious. They all approve of her products and buy a lot of them. So business is good. At mid-morning, everything was sold out. Zhang Ziluo and Mrs. Kui closed the stall, and Mrs. Kui looked at the bullock cart and things. Zhang Ziluo went to buy duck eggs. She first went to an old lady in the far corner. She noticed the old lady with gray hair and hunched over because she came to the market. She was sitting on a horse with a basket in front of her, which was full of duck eggs. She wouldn't shout, and no one would come to see her. She would just sit there motionless, waiting for people to come and buy. Looking at her like this, Zhang Ziluo felt a little uncomfortable. She walked over and said, "Old man, how do you sell duck eggs?" When the old lady saw someone coming to ask, she was very excited and said quickly, "2 duck eggs for 1 penny." Zhang Ziluo lowered her head to look at the duck eggs, preparing to buy them. However, when the old lady saw that Zhang Ziluo was silent, she said nervously, "If you buy more, I can make it cheaper." The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 228. Zhang Ziluo looked at the duck eggs in the old lady's basket and felt they were big and good. She smiled and said, "It's okay, I bought them all." When the old lady heard this, she was immediately shocked. "Girl, you buy them all?" "Yes, just pay the price you said, 2 for 1 penny, and buy them all." "How many are there in total?" The old lady couldn't believe it, and she was so excited by Zhang Ziluo's words that she was speechless. After a while, she finally said, 62 duck eggs in total. She saves everything every day. She would count the eggs several times every day. When she came, she would put all the eggs in the basket and count them several times for fear of making a mistake. Each duck egg costs half a penny, which is very important to their family. Their family has no food, but the price of food in the town has increased. After selling the duck eggs, they can buy some grain noodles to eat as a family. Eat sparingly so that you can survive until the food comes. The old lady and her family only had one meal for several days. Eat some wild vegetables when you are hungry. They were reluctant to eat even the vegetables from the fields, so they tried to bring them to the market. An extra penny is a penny, because grain is 5 pence more expensive than usual per kilogram, and the price of miscellaneous grains has almost doubled. She was also hungry now, but she endured it. She carefully walked to the market every day carrying a basket of duck eggs. No one bought them and carried them back. She has been here for several days. There are actually many people selling duck eggs, but people don't eat duck eggs very much, and there are few people buying duck eggs. That's why no one bought a basket of duck eggs for so many days. At this time, listening to this girl's words, the old lady almost shed tears. But she still worried about it, for fear that the girl would not buy it again. Zhang Ziluo found 31 cents and handed it to the old lady and said, 62 duck eggs, 2 of which are 1 cent each, a total of 31 cents. Old man, can you count them? The old lady stretched out her hand and carefully took the copper coin. Zhang Ziluo saw that her hands were rough, dark, and cracked. It looked like they were hands that had been working all year round. The old lady counted them one by one carefully. After counting, she said, "Girl, it is 31 cents. Old man, please put it away and go home early." When Zhang Ziluo bought duck eggs, she deliberately used the wood power to shield the surroundings so that no one could see the movement here. She mainly wanted to prevent anyone from seeing the old lady's money, and what she would do halfway through. In this way, no one will notice the side, and the old lady will be safe. The old lady nodded and said, "Yes, yes, girl, thank you, thank you." Old ladies have to bow to Zhang Ziluo. Zhang Ziluo hurriedly supported the old lady. "Old man, I need more duck eggs, so I bought them all. No need to thank me." But the old lady still thanked the girl in front of her. She could see that the girl was a kind person. She stretched out her hand to help put all the duck eggs in the basket into the girl's basket, and then left the market with the basket and the backpack next to it. The old lady walks briskly. She sold the duck eggs and had more copper coins in her hand. She couldn't wait to go home and share the good news with her family. Zhang Ziluo strolled around the market again and bought almost all the duck eggs in the market. There are stalls selling eggs and duck eggs in the market here, almost in a basket. Zhang Ziluo bought a lot, almost more than 600 duck eggs. They were all put on the bullock cart. Mrs. Kui said, "Fortunately, we brought many backpacks, otherwise there would be nothing to hold them. Duck eggs cannot be stored in sacks because they may fall accidentally due to bumps. Even when going back, the cattle cart must be driven a little slower." Zhang Ziluo placed the duck eggs on the ox cart and put straw on top. This blockage actually secretly put the duck eggs into the space. In this way, you don't have to worry about bumps when driving the cattle cart. "Mom, let's go buy something first and then go home. Isn't there any in the market?" Zhang Ziluo said, "Well, I just took a stroll. There is nothing here in the market. Most of them sell food here. Let's go to the dock or the grocery store. I want to buy some shellfish." When she heard the shells, Mrs. Kui said, "Isn't that something only found in the sea?" Mrs. Kui didn't know what the shells would be used for. "But if you want to buy Ziluo, it will definitely be useful." Zhang Ziluo said, "Well, there are many beaches, but we in Bizhu are not close to the sea, so we can only buy them there. Fortunately, we have a dock here with convenient transportation, and it's not far from the sea. Some people think that the shells are novel and beautiful, so they will transport some to sell them. Most people think this thing is just for looking at, and it doesn't look very good, so few people buy it and the price is cheap. Zhang Ziluo went to the grocery store first. She deliberately looked at this and that, then pointed at the shell next to her and said, "This one looks a bit strange." Oh, the girl is really discerning. This is something transported from the seaside. People over there like to use this as decoration. Zhang Ziluo said, "Even if it is used as decoration, it must be processed. These look like a pile of debris." The shopkeeper hurriedly promoted, "Girl, you can't say that. If you decorate it properly, it will definitely look good." I don't know how long those shells had been there. They were already a year or two old. They were old goods and no one was buying them, so he was anxious to sell them. Finally a girl saw these things. "It looks very ordinary, but I don't know what the price is. The price is too expensive, so it's not worth it." The shopkeeper looked at the girl's expression carefully and saw that she was frowning and didn't really want to buy it. The shopkeeper murmured in his heart and could only say, "If the girl buys more, it will definitely be cheaper." Zhang Ziluo said, "How many do you have here?" "There are 5 sacks." In this way, Zhang Ziluo negotiated the price and bought one large bag for 10 cents, and 5 large bags for 50 cents. The shopkeeper was also happy. Although it was cheap, he still made some money. To him, these things looked like rocks. I don't know why people at the beach like these things. People here think these things are not practical. Poor people don't have enough to eat, so they don't care about decorations. Rich nobles like gold and silver jewelry and don't wear them. In fact, in Zhang Ziluo's opinion, shells are really beautiful, especially when used as decorations. It's just that ordinary people here in Bizhu are still in a state of food and clothing, and they don't care about decoration. I bought Zhang Ziluo because the shells can be used to make lime. She has not found limestone yet, so she can only use shells first. In this way you can pickle preserved eggs. After walking forward from the grocery store for a while, Mrs. Kui suddenly pointed over there and said, "Ziluo, look, isn't that Linzu's stall? Isn't that Linzu's rearrangement of the stall?" Hearing the sound, Zhang Ziluo turned around and saw a meat stall at the entrance of an alley. In the past, when Zhang Ziluo came to town and wanted to buy meat, she would go and take a look. But the door was closed every time. As time went by, Zhang Ziluo stopped paying attention to that side. Unexpectedly, the meat stall will be reopened this time. Just looking at the woman setting up the stall, Zhang Ziluo was slightly surprised. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 229. In fact, the woman looked very slender. Kelinzu's body shape is plump and cute. But the woman in front of the meat stall is indeed very thin. Zhang Ziluo said, "Mom, let's go over and take a look." With that said, they drove the bullock cart over. Looking closely, Zhang Ziluo was sure that this was Linzu. She just didn't expect that she had lost so much weight. She was cutting ribs for someone at this time. She was raising and lowering the knife, but she looked very strong. "It looks like I have lost weight, but my strength has not decreased." After the customer left, Linzu noticed that there were still customers. She raised her head and was about to speak when she saw Zhang Ziluo and Mrs. Kui. The kitchen knife in her hand almost dropped to the ground. "Ziluo, Aunt." Linzu was smiling at the customer just now, but when she saw Zhang Ziluo, her eyes became red and tears accumulated in her eyes, but she was stubborn and did not let them fall. Zhang Ziluo stepped forward and said, Zuzu, it's really you. Why have you lost so much weight? Lin Zuzu wiped her tears and choked up, it's a long story. I couldn't eat before, so I lost weight. I'm so happy to see you again, Ziluo. And thanks to you, I didn't even thank you properly. Zhang Ziluo said, I'm quite worried about you. I'm relieved to see that you're fine. Zhang Ziluo was afraid that Lin Zuzu would not be able to think clearly. She also wanted to see Lin Zuzu, but she felt that Lin Zuzu still had to deal with it on her own. Her too much interference is not good either. After all, it is other people's family matters. Lin Zuzu put down the knife, hurriedly stepped forward to hold Zhang Ziluo's hand, and also invited Mrs. Kui to sit in the yard. I originally wanted to go find you and thank you, but with my reputation, I'm afraid I'll hurt you. This incident gave her a bad reputation, and people in the village gossiped behind her back. The girls dare not contact her or talk to her. Even her parents did not dare to go to other people's homes. When she was most depressed, there were times when she couldn't even think about things. Seeing how worried her parents were, even her younger brother took leave from the academy to come back to see her. She just wanted to do it for her family, and she couldn't help but think about it. It was not easy for her parents to provide for her. So she convinced herself to survive. At that time, she couldn't eat at all. In the past, when she saw food, she thought it was delicious and made her hungry easily. Then she just couldn't eat it and she lost weight for some reason. She just came out to set up her stall again yesterday. I just thought that maybe I could see Ziluo again. Mrs. Kui looked at Lin Zuzu distressedly and said, my child, the road has been walked by people. There is no obstacle that cannot be overcome. Just walk over it and it will be fine. Mrs. Kui looked at Lin Zuzu and couldn't help but think of her daughter. She doesn't know how her daughter is doing now. If it were like this with Lin Zuzu, she would not be heartbroken to death. Lin Zuzu looked at Mrs. Kui and felt that her eyes were so gentle and warm. Especially the sentence brought warmth to her heart. Yeah, just get through it. She is in a much better mood now. Zhang Ziluo said, as the saying goes, there must be a road before the car reaches the mountain. Mountain darkly, vista. Don't think too much, we don't care about these nihilistic things at all. There will be people who don't care about you and think you are very nice. So don't belittle yourself, besides, it's not your fault. So don't punish yourself for the mistakes of others. In this way, only relatives and enemies will be happy, right? Lin Zuzu's younger brother is literate, so Lin Zuzu also knows some words. So she could understand what Zhang Ziluo said. Her originally chaotic brain was suddenly struck by these words, and she felt a sense of enlightenment in an instant. She seemed to have figured it out all of a sudden. She excitedly held Zhang Ziluo's hand tightly and said, Ziluo, thank you. You are right, I should cheer up and live a good life. Those who gossip will find it boring. She should not care what others say. Ziluo, it's great to meet you. I still have a friend like you. At this time, Mrs. Kui was still in shock. Her daughter-in-law was also so talented. The words I just said cannot be said by ordinary women. Even women who have read books may not be able to tell it. There is a sentence that is a poem, it makes so much sense. Zhang Ziluo and Mrs. Kui accompanied Lin Zuzu to have a conversation. When they were leaving, Lin Zuzu insisted on giving them a lot of pork legs and ribs. There are so many, Zhang Ziluo doesn't want them no matter what. In fact, Lin Zuzu wished she could give all the pork and ribs in the stall to Zhang Ziluo. But she also knew Ziluo's temperament and was afraid that doing so would scare Ziluo. She has been very restrained. She wants to be nice to Ziluo. In her heart, this is her benefactor. Zuzu, you treat me like an outsider. If you give me so much, it will go bad if we can't finish it. Lin Zuzu looked at Zhang Ziluo with pitiful eyes. He had to give it, but there was no other way. Zhang Ziluo could only take a little. Although it was only a little, Lin Zuzu still stuffed a lot. A large piece of ribs, more than 10 kilograms of pork belly, and a large piece of pork leg. On the way back, Zhang Ziluo looked at these things and felt a little embarrassed. They were all taken for free. Mrs. Kui said, Zuzu is an honest child. I made some delicious food for her and brought her there. As long as we come and go, we will have a long time to come. Mrs. Kui also admires this girl. In the village, facing such things, Lin Zuzu could still cheer up, which is not what ordinary women can do. Many girls value reputation more than their lives. This also shows that she has sensible parents. On the way back, Zhang Ziluo saw Mugwort on the hillside in the distance. Mom, that's Mugwort, I'm going to cut some. Mrs. Kui said, only during the Qingming festival, I will hang some wormwood on my ancestors. Do I still need to cut the wormwood? Zhang Ziluo hadn't noticed Mugwort before. It was all arranged by Mrs. Kui, and after that day, it was accepted. So Zhang Ziluo didn't pay attention. Zhang Ziluo said, Mom, mugwort is edible and can be used to make many delicacies, including mugwort green dumplings, mugwort glutinous rice cakes, mugwort jelly, mugwort steamed buns, mugwort dumplings, mugwort glutinous rice dumplings, etc. Yes, at this moment, when Zhang Ziluo saw mugwort, she thought of various mugwort delicacies in her mind. Especially the delicacies in the color of wormwood, which make people appetizing just by looking at them. Mrs. Kui was surprised. She always thought mugwort was just a kind of grass. I didn't expect that I could make food. Without thinking, she knew that Ziluo's delicacies made with mugwort would be delicious. Okay, Mom will help you cut them and get more. We can also make more food. Mrs. Kui was curious about what mugwort steamed buns tasted like. She knows what kudzu steamed buns taste like anyway. There was some kudzu powder at home that was not eaten, so she kept it. Sometimes I brew a cup of arrowroot powder and add some sugar. It tastes great. Mom, mugwort is also a kind of Chinese medicinal material. Eating it is also good for the human body. You can also make mugwort tea. Mrs. Kui said, I know this. People in our village also use mugwort to make pillows and soak their feet. People in these villages know about it, but no one uses mugwort for food. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 230. Chapter 230 Secret Recipe, First Update. Mrs. Kui felt it was quite magical when she heard what Zhang Ziluo said. It turns out that there are many grasses and flowers that she doesn't know about that can be used to make food. For example, the locust flower from before is really delicious when made into steamed buns. Mrs. Kui used to pull mugwort with Zhang Ziluo, looking forward to the taste of various mugwort foods. There are many hillsides in this area, and they didn't pay attention before walking back and forth on the road. I happened to see it when I came back this time, so I pulled out some more and put them on the bullock cart. Zhang Ziluo said, Mom, there happens to be no dry food at home. Let's go back to make dough and make mugwort steamed buns in the afternoon. We also happen to have the pork belly that Zuzu gave us, so we can use it to make braised pork. They haven't eaten pork belly for a long time. Okay, that's the arrangement. She mainly wanted to taste the mugwort steamed buns. The main thing is that it's lunchtime now, so it's too late to make fresh steamed buns. Zhang Ziluo thought for a while and said, Mom, let's make pork rib soup with mushrooms at noon. When Ziluo was pulling mugwort, she happened to pick a few mushrooms and fungus. After it rains, there are a lot of mushrooms and fungus. She and Mrs. Kui ate together, and one dish was enough to eat. After returning home, the two of them started to get busy. After driving the ox cart home, Zhang Ziluo quickly used her mind to put the duck eggs in the empty space back into the basket on the back of the ox cart. When Mrs. Kui lifted up the grass above, She saw the duck eggs inside. I'm still worried about bumping it on the road. It looks like it's not broken, so I wonder if there are any broken duck eggs underneath. A duck egg costs half a penny. If it is broken, Ms. Kui will feel distressed. And these duck eggs can be pickled into preserved eggs, and preserved eggs are not cheap. Zhang Ziluo knew what Ms. Kui was worried about. Mom, don't worry, we are walking slowly on the road, and the carriage is padded with straw, so it won't be bumpy. Yes, that's true. I listened to the sounds on the road, but I didn't hear any broken sounds. Zhang Ziluo and Ms. Kui first took down the backpacks one by one. He took down the 5 big bags of shells. The duck eggs will be pickled in the afternoon, and a small part of the shells will be kept for later use, and the rest will be put in the utility room. Hand down the wormwood and put it aside. The bullock cart was under the cowshed. Zhang Ziluo started washing her hands and cooking. There is still rice cooked in the morning, which is enough for 2 people at noon. They can just heat it up and eat it as a staple food. The next dish is mushroom and pork rib soup. Ms. Kui washes the ribs and mushrooms. Zhang Ziluo prepares the seasoning. Chop the washed mushrooms and fungus. Zhang Ziluo also cut some carrot slices. Then Ms. Kui lit the fire, and Zhang Ziluo blanched the ribs. After blanching, clean the pot and add water again, add onion and segments, and add some rice wine. There is no cooking wine here, so we can only use rice wine instead. Add in the pork ribs and stew. After boiling over high heat, remove the blood foam, then add mushrooms, fungus and carrot slices, and simmer over low heat. When it's almost done, add some seasonings and sprinkle some coriander. Cilantro is grown in the vegetable garden, so just pull some out when needed. Vegetables in this era do not contain any pesticides. They are all pure green and pollution-free ingredients, and they are safe to eat. Ms. Kui and Zhang Ziluo both felt relaxed when they sat together for lunch. Ms. Kui feels that she is busy working every day just for one bite of food. Every time you eat, your body and mind feel relaxed and comfortable. Ms. Kui said, "This soup is light and delicious, and tastes delicious." Zhang Ziluo also felt that drinking some soup made her both physically and mentally comfortable, and all her fatigue was dispelled. After lunch and a break, Ms. Kui was going to prepare dough to make steamed buns. The leaves of the mugwort are picked off, washed, and then mashed in a stone mortar. Add water to make a paste, and then filter it with gauze to filter out the mugwort juice leaves. Ms. Kui looked at so much mugwort juice and said, "You don't need so much. Just a little water is needed for kneading the dough." Zhang Ziluo said, "Mom, scoop out as much as you want. I will keep the remaining wormwood juice to make wormwood glutinous rice cakes and wormwood glutinous rice dumplings tomorrow." Good. Ms. Kui used mugwort juice to make dough. Zhang Ziluo went to the yard to scoop out water and wash the duck eggs. After washing the duck eggs, she started to prepare a pot to burn the plant ashes. Then sieve it, and then pour in the ashes after cooking and burning. Crush the shells again, burn the shells, pour them in after burning, and then pour in the salt. After stirring well, pour in the rice water after washing 2 or 3 times in the morning. This rice water is alkaline. She thought she would need it when she went home in the afternoon to pickle duck eggs, so she kept them. Stir everything poured into the basin evenly. After everything is done, put the duck eggs in, roll them, and wrap them up. Then put hay and wood ashes in a jar and put in the wrapped duck eggs. Then put it in a cool place and you can eat it after more than half a month. But when Zhang Ziluo was pickling duck eggs, she looked at the mugwort and the gray shells of vegetation, and her mind moved. Actually, these things and roasted lard can be used to make soap. Yes, these things can also be used to make soap. There happens to be mugwort, so mugwort soap can be made. It's just that I don't have molds at home. But there is a bamboo tube. Put it in the bamboo tube. After it has settled and solidified, Peel off the bamboo tube and cut the long pieces into pieces. When I wash clothes at home, I use soap leaves. In order to wash the clothes clean, she and Mrs. both beat them hard with mallets. However, some clothes are easy to break if you are not careful, so you need to be careful when beating them. So washing clothes is sometimes very slow. With soap, washing clothes would be much faster. While Zhang Ziluo was thinking about it, Mrs. had already kneaded the dough, covered it and set it aside. It should have risen in more than 2 hours, and it would be time to make steamed buns. Not to mention that after taking the mugwort juice, she smelled a faint scent of grass. I guess it tastes good too. Ziluo, if you need anything else, my mother will help you. Zhang Ziluo said, Mom, I'm thinking of taking out some pork belly and roasting it in some lard. Mrs. said, our family roasted some lard before, and we still have a small jar. Their family uses a lot of oil when making bread, chili con carne sauce, and food, so they roasted some of the lard they bought before. This way you don't have to bake the oil every time. There is still a small jar at home that can be used. When Zhang Ziluo heard this, her expression changed and she said, Mom, take out the jar of oil. We can make soap at this time. Mrs. didn't know why. How to make soap instead of pickled duck eggs. But what is soap? Mrs. just went to the back room and took out a puddle of lard and said, Ziluo, is the soap you mentioned similar to honey locust leaves? Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, well, it's just a soap for washing. It's much easier to use than acacia leaves. Let's make a little bit of it first, and then we'll know how to use it once we're ready. If possible, Zhang Ziluo would like to start a soap business. But now that there is a war outside, and all forces are ready to take action, Zhang Ziluo doesn't want to be too high profile yet. What if someone sees that the soap is so good and covets the secret recipe? End of this chapter.